bucket list. It's like, all right, I'll look at this piece of trash, and I'll be able to snuff it out in a weekend, right? And that's what I did in 2014. Forward 9 months later, and I'm just losing it. I'm breaking my keyboard over my head, and it was the beginning of 2015. I said, you know what? I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. There were too many loose threads, too many open questions. So I said, you know what? The internet hive mind is really, really intelligent. They miss nothing. You know, go to moviemistakes.com if you haven't done that. Seriously, if a coffee cup moves from one side of the room to the other and the character doesn't move it, oh yeah, you're going to hear about it. Not to mention the whole Starbucks and Game of Thrones things we won't get into. But because that was much, much later. So I put a series of videos out there called Flat Earth Clues, and I put it out to the internet hive mind. I said, you know what? I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. Tell me where I went wrong. And that was the beginning of an odyssey, which is still happening today with Behind the Curve, the documentary, which came out last year.
And it was interesting because watching it, which was it, Jeff or you, Scott, that was like, we need to watch this?
Man, it was Jeff. Jeff, it was you, right?
Yeah, I watched it first.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I watched it last.
So when Scott said, "Hey, I got this flat earther guy," and he put out the name, I said, "That sounds familiar." And I said, "I just watched this last week. This is awesome."
And it was one of those things we didn't even realize until we started talking about it amongst ourselves that you are in the Washington area. You're from Washington.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. It's like, oh shit, we're gonna get you on to talk about this because it's cool.
Yeah. Born and raised. Went to Wazoo for a year. Drank my first year of
Congratulations, that's what you
school.
do there.
Yeah, thank you. And then I went to Western and was thrown out my junior year for manufacturing explosives on campus.
What the fuck?
Like fireworks?
Yes, exactly. Well, as you know, there's a lot of Native American reservations around here.
Yes, sir.
By that I mean Casino American, and they need black market fireworks. And I was good at chemistry, well, still am, and I supplied that for them and made it on campus. And it didn't.
No, that doesn't really go over quite well.
No, the university wasn't fond of the whole thing.
That's funny. We know a few people that actually used to do that in their childhood.
Yeah, snitches get stitches. Like what friend of yours could have dimed you out to the college?
Oh, you're exactly right. It was a woman. It was a woman who I had dated briefly, and she was going to work for me during the summer, and my current girlfriend said, no, I don't like her very much. You got to fire her. And this girl came to me, and she said, look, you do this. She literally said, I will drop the dime on you.
Yeah.
And I said, what? You will not. I mean, seriously.
And then she did.
Yeah, it's hyperbole, right? And I found this out from the agents later, the ATF later. And I go,
oh, my God.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because I asked him, I go, hey, how the hell did you get my name? Anyway, they go, this really angry girl called up the FBI, and of course they routed her over to the ATF, and we didn't do anything about it. And then 2 weeks later, she calls back, and she goes, "Why is this guy still walking around campus?" She's from New York, one of those New York girls, and just laid into him. And they said, "Fine." And so they just wrote my name and my name down. And when they were it was in somebody's pocket when they went to this chemical company in Colorado. And they said, "Oh, yeah, by the way, do you know this guy named Mark Sargent?" And they go, "Do we?"
And how?
Yeah, we got a big shipment that's going to head his way soon. It's like,
oh, really?
Yeah, and that's the beginning of the fall.
Wow, so you weren't even trying to hide it. You were just all in.
What, when I was doing...
When you're doing the fireworks?
You weren't even trying to hide it.
Oh, no. I had 32 people working for me on campus.
Oh, you were like in major fireworks.
Oh, yeah, it was huge.
What was the name of your brand?
Brimstone.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's a nice.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. It was real. I don't regret it for a second. I gotta tell you.
I can tell you seem pretty proud of it.
If I was gonna do it over again, I would absolutely I would have done it the same way, and I would have paid her right off the bat. I would have said that's what I would have done differently. I would have said, you know what, Lori, here's your money.
See, when about was that?
When I got nailed, or when?
Yeah. When you got nailed, when you're doing the manufacturing
stuff. I started
stuff.
doing it in '88.
Okay, because I was like, if you're doing that in any sort of like 95 past, you were spending time in prison at that point.
Yeah. I was doing it. Windows were closing behind me. Let's put it that way. So it was probably good I got nailed when I did because, after
you were probably
in a post 9/11 world.
Oh yeah, post 9/11 world. It would have been.
You were probably one of those persons where you were the reason why they wrote the rules.
Probably. In fact, there was there's only 5 federal judges in the Northwest area, and turns out I knew the first one that was assigned to me. That was even the worst part. He actually went to one of my fireworks shows down on the beach down.
Like, oh yeah, I've seen those
on Whidbey Island. No, seriously. They said I won't give you his name, but my defense attorney said, "Oh yeah, your judge is going to be Judge Johnson," and it's like, Tom Johnson. She goes, "Why? You know him?" I go,
No.
Yeah. Not only did I go to school, his 3 sons all went up to Western, but his oldest son dated my sister.
Oh,
It was a
ties there. Yeah.
small world, and so and
Wow.
I go, you think he's gonna turn down my case? And she goes, yeah, pretty safe bet. And so anyway,
So being from a small town, do you think you were always kind of doing stuff like this when you were growing up? Getting
yeah.
a collection of people to do your bidding the Tom Sawyer sort of way with the whitewashing of the wall?
well, it helps to have friends.
Yeah.
But growing up in a rural community, you really had to work to make trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So like I grew up on the south end of Whidbey Island, and
What?
it's pretty rural.
You just said some weird shit about Tom Sawyer.
Don't you?
I have never heard that before.
You've
Please
never
explain
read?
that.
You've never
No,
read
I've read
Tom
Tom
Sawyer?
Sawyer.
Okay, do you realize that he conscripted the entire neighborhood to
paint the fence for
paint
him?
the fence for him? Yeah,
Okay.
whitewashing.
I just had never. Look at you.
Oh wow,
I
he's
know.
impressed by me saying words.
It was a good one, though.
It took me a minute. I'm like,
That is some literary trivia right
yeah.
there.
Like,
Look at
Absolutely.
that.
But yeah, I mean, it was tough to. Short of throwing rocks at cop cars, you could not get in trouble on up on Whidbey Island, and so I had sort of a mischievous. You weren't afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
On the island, and so that kind of carried over where I went off to different places.
Nice.
So yeah.
And so, how do you feel that leads you to what you're doing now with the Flat Earth YouTube, and going to conventions and doing all this stuff?
It helped in a way, because again, I grew up so naive. When you grow up in a really sheltered environment, I honestly thought there was like one religion when I graduated from high school. I had no idea. And then when you went to university, everything just opened up. So I was this super sheltered kid, and so yeah, it kind of fueled me, and well, especially with the fireworks thing. But when I went off to Colorado to play video games for a living and do all that fun stuff, I was kind of on my own, just doing my own thing, and there was no risks to take. I wasn't building fireworks. I was just kind of doing the whole tech thing and geeking out and doing super nerdy things all the time.
I know Pro Gamer. This is kind of cool because Brogan and I played a lot of video games.
quite a bit.
Yeah,
Did
still
you?
a lot of them. What were you pro gaming with? Was it like a group of people, and was it a specific game?
Oh no! You gotta remember, this was back in the old days. Back in '95.
Oh,
No,
shit.
there were no pro gamers back then. I was hired as a ringer. So I was hired by a little publisher out of Boulder, Colorado, even though most of the publishers, as you know, are in northern and southern California.
Yeah.
I was hired by this little company because none of them in the company played games. They were all marketing people and graphics people, but nobody actually played the freaking games. They were just a publishing house for a little company. The main games were a little company out of Tokyo called Little Wing.
Okay.
That made pinball games, computer pinball simulations, and they were very, very good. And I won a computer tournament, worldwide tournament, and that's how I got in. They said,
It's like the last Starfighter.
yeah, kind of, but yeah. And so they hired me, and they flew me out to Boulder, Colorado for an interview, and it really went well. And then I traveled around to like Macworld Boston and Macworld San Francisco and E3 and stuff like that, and made the games look better than they were. And that's what I did for that company for a number of years until they finally folded, and then I just parlayed that into other tech stuff.
That was my mother's favorite thing, was to play those old computer,
The pinball ones?
robot pinball.
Oh, yeah.
Computers. She loved that shit.
Yeah. And then after that, I hung out because I played games. I hung out with a lot of really great gamers. Outstanding gamers. If the pro circuit was alive back then, they would have absolutely been in it. These guys. One of them. Do you remember the old game Duke Nukem?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that game.
One of my really good friends won the world tournament on that down at E3 and got a chance to play George. I can't remember names. Brassard. He was the creator of Duke Nukem, and he just smoked him. He just smoked him. At one point, George had like a negative number. He was killing himself so much trying to get to my friend. But anyway, but ever since then, like I still to this day have a Warcraft account. Still play. In fact, the guild is called Flat Earth.
Oh, that's the best.
And we still go out and play, and like the accounts still run, right?
My WoW account is still active. I haven't played it in years.
Yeah,
I'm just paying $15 a month.
Are
for
you
no
really?
reason.
Just stop the subscription. You
I
can
haven't
come back
even
to it.
paid for the last 2 expansions.
Yeah.
I haven't even like. Just,
You've been using tokens?
huh? No, I just haven't played at
like
all.
actually
Oh, because
played it,
you don't
yeah.
even have to pay now. Nowadays, well, no, if you make enough gold, if you make, I think, 100,000 gold a month, you just give it to Blizzard, and they'll say, oh, yeah, you get your month free.
And if only my
Jeez.
bot still worked.
Yeah, they don't really approve of bots.
See, yeah,
so
here's
much.
the
No,
thing,
they
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
got really good at that.
Yeah, see, Brogan was the kind of gamer who would kind of go through it once sometimes, and then he would find ways to not go through it, but still play, quote unquote, play the game.
Well, you had to get all the supplies for raiding, man. I didn't have, I had kids and like a job.
Yeah.
I could just turn that thing on, come back, and we got a raiding party worth of potions.
Yeah, we used to
Like,
get stupid with EverQuest. Brogan
Yeah.
and I used to get really stupid with EverQuest.
Nice.
That was
So,
our game.
Yeah.
I had a friend. You probably heard these stories. I mean, I had a friend that quit EverQuest 4 times, trashed it, threw all the discs in the trash, dug them out later. He could not quit until Warcraft came out, and then he was finally like, okay, finally something.
That
to
was
jump on.
basically us.
I had an ex-girlfriend that wouldn't date me unless I destroyed my computer. I totally destroyed my computer.
Yeah, the things you do.
Well, whatever. You made her cry.
Yeah. Oh, her? yeah. I'm not even sad about that, man. I was on acid on New Year's, and she was like, she calls up, I know you don't like me, but Happy New Year's, and I was like, yeah, you're right, I don't like you.
Ooh, harsh.
I know.
You're
I still
a
don't.
dick.
I still don't feel bad about it though.
Yeah.
I really don't.
It's all right.
Yeah.
She's plotting her revenge still.
Oh, I'm sure
She's
she
got her
is.
Steve Buscemi list.
So let's talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
why we brought you here,
Sure,
and it's
sure.
it's the dealing with the flat Earth. Now, for the people who haven't seen the special and haven't heard you talk about it,
Right.
How do you explain the concept of the flat Earth to people who are under the assumption,
Yeah.
as everyone else is, that we are in a globe?
Okay, the short version is that everybody, or most people in the world, think that you're on this little tiny rock that's covered with a thin sheen of water, which is covered by atmosphere that's spinning through the galaxy in 5 different directions and 5 different velocities, and you mean nothing. I mean, you're just this tiny, insignificant speck. You're an accident, part of the Big Bang, and that's just how it is. That's what science says. And we say it's the exact opposite. You're actually in a construct. You're in a flat disc world that basically looks like a snow globe, a terrarium, a planetarium, whatever you want to call it, whatever relates to you. A pizza box. I've had some radio
pizza
people.
A cake
box.
dish.
Yeah, a cake dish. In
I was
fact,
looking at my
look,
cake
I
dish
like
this
that
morning.
more than a pizza box. That doesn't really mean
I bring it up only because when I talk to different radio people, they say whatever relates to their audience. Like Russell Brand said snow globe, and I go, yeah, let's go with that, snow globe. And another guy said pizza box, and I go, you have a different audience than what I was expecting.
Like a weed container for our listeners.
Oh,
There
yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Well,
there you
no,
go.
The cake dish though was pretty good because like some of the early 3D models that have been built actually were made with full-blown cake dishes until they could do custom stuff. So anyway, it's I don't know, 20,000 miles wide. The ceiling on it would be pretty shallow, maybe 3,000 miles high. The sun and the moon are flying in here inside us. They could be 3-dimensional, they could be 2-dimensional, but they're very, very small. Less than 50 miles wide, and the planets and the stars and everything else are just pretty lights in the sky.
So
And-
like the stickers you would put up
Yes,
on your ceiling.
the glow in the dark
Yeah,
stickers
yeah,
on the
yeah.
ceiling. Yeah. Only they're much
I
higher.
have so many questions.
I know. Everybody does, and that's how it starts. But yeah, that's what we say. And you don't need a galaxy and a solar system and everything else around it, and you definitely don't need calculus and trig and quantum mechanics and all that. It's just a simple.
Good,
close
because we
system.
don't understand that shit.
Well, and that was
anyway.
one of the interesting things in the special. And I mean, the special is cut the way they want to special. They want to cut the special.
Oh yeah, they hate us.
I got that.
Yeah.
I absolutely got that. But one of the first things that is saying is you say straight off, math is not real.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
It's not-
or how do you believe that? Because literally, it's just that line, and then they like cut to something else.
Oh yeah. Oh, the
So-
power of editing. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
god. By
yeah.
the time, and don't get me wrong, I actually enjoyed spending time with the director and the producers of this film. But by the time they got to the end of the shoot, 'cause it took 7 months to make that thing. They were really, really pissed off with the whole concept, and the big reason was I got to throw this out there real quick before you have questions.
Yeah.
Which is when they got to the conference. If you remember that part in the conference where that 12-year-old kid walks up to the microphone and he starts asking me questions. Well, that's when everything turned for these guys. Up until that point, it was going to be a human interest piece, and when they saw that, they go, oh, okay. all right, shit just got real now.
Because a 12-year-old is asking about it. and
Well, yeah,
interested in
yeah.
it?
They said it's
Okay.
all, the old saying, it's all fun and games until the kids are involved.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on. Seriously, it's not like we're targeting kids. It's not like we're doing a marketing campaign with Joe Camel. So don't give me this grief about kids. And
Yeah.
so that's when they decide, okay, by that time, remember, they had already shot everything. Everything was in the can or digitally. And so that's when they said, okay, we're going to go after Jared, we're going to go after Bob, we're going to take a few shots at Mark and Nathan, and any shots we can take, we are going to take. By the time the end of the movie, you're going to know that where we stand.
Where we are. Yeah, exactly.
And we didn't even know this until Patricia and I were listening to the director's commentary on the iTunes version. And that's the only place you can find the director's commentary. And by the end, he got to the end. I'm listening. I'm going, I'm bored. They're not saying anything. And then they said, oh yeah, this is the point. And all three of the people that were in there, the editor, the main producer, and the director, they all agreed. And it's like, really?
So you didn't even know until you actually just listened to that.
Yeah.
That's got to be kind of a punch in the dick for you at that point.
Well, it was a double-edged sword for us, which was everybody in the flat Earth community hates the documentary. They just hate it.
Yeah.
But everybody outside, remember, I got to go to a whole bunch of film festivals. This thing did extremely well before it got to Netflix. We did 27 film festivals in 9 countries.
God damn.
I know, and most of the
It
time
was very well made.
It was absolutely.
Well, considering the shoestring budget, and by that I mean shoestring from the dollar store shoestring. I mean, it was extremely. I mean, when you hear it's like, oh yeah, it took us multiple credit cards to finish this movie, you know that they're running on vapors.
Yeah.
But I got a chance to go to several film festivals. One in Arkansas, one the premiere in Canada. One up in Bellingham, go figure.
Yeah, right.
Western, my old stomping ground.
Oh yeah, Western.
Yeah,
Did it
and-
still have the Chick-fil-A there? Sorry.
I don't know.
You just shut that down. Chick-fil-A, man.
But in the audience, people, the reason why it did as well as it did was, and this comes to the questions part, is the first 20, 30 minutes, people didn't think it was real. They literally didn't. I mean, I could hear them laughing. They were laughing at the
Almost like a Christopher Guest sort of thing going on.
They thought it was like a piece of docufiction.
Yeah,
and then all of a
yeah.
sudden, they realized that we weren't pulling back, and they were going, wait a minute. You could hear the whispers. They're going, wait a minute. There's something on the internet that I don't know about. Something really weird and big. And it started to freak people out. And I'll give you a real quick story. The editor of the movie, the main editor, took it to one of his editor friends down in Hollywood. And he goes, all right, I'm going to show you something. I'm not going to give you any context. Just watch this. And he watched it. And at the end, remember, all these documentary guys know each other.
Yeah.
And so he goes, dude, you've been holding on to me. What sort of budget did you have for this movie? And he's going, what are you talking about? He goes, all those actors, they played it so straight.
See, that's the beauty is when you don't need the actors.
Yeah, and the editor goes, no, man, that was real. And the guy's all of a sudden his pupils just, and he's going, what do you mean that thing, that conference down in Raleigh, that was happened, that was a thing? He goes, yeah, man, I was there for 3 days, and it's like. And he had to reevaluate his entire experience on it. So.
Now, when you watch the special and you see the conference, how many conferences had happened before this? Was that like?
Oh, you mean that? No, that was the first one.
That was the first one.
500 years.
Wow. 300
years before the United States was even founded. Oh yeah, it was a big deal. And in fact, even the media didn't take it seriously. They sent scouts. Most people don't know that the media will send recon out first.
Oh yeah.
And they'll be like walking around just to make sure it's not a bust. And I could see them on their phones. I watched these guys like, yeah, you got to send a team down here like right now. And like overnight, you had all these cameras show up from everybody, Australian journalism and French and ABC and BBC and heck, Howard Stern sent a team.
That doesn't surprise me.
But yeah, he didn't show up himself because he knew he would. He
doesn't want to.
No,
that's
he doesn't want to travel.
Howard Stern is not going to do that.
He will send people. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
no, in something like that, he might, but he would be too recognizable.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm sure he's in an oxygen box somewhere.
Yeah.
They'd only bring him out when they need him.
But I did I think 13 interviews in 2 days. I missed basically the whole conference. I did my set, and then the second as I was done, it was like I was just dragged into different rooms.
Well, at that point, yeah, because it's suddenly hit you're talking about places coming from Australia, France, etc.
Yeah.
It's hit the worldwide notion there beyond just the internet. Because I think that's one of the interesting things about the internet itself, for better or worse, it will bring people together for any like-minded
For half
prospect.
a second till they start making comments on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
Then it just implodes.
And it's I think the internet has been able to boon those sort of things, but it also takes meeting up with all these people to not necessarily prove that the people themselves are real, but it's also just a good sense of community on that end.
Oh yeah, we're on tour this year. I mean, after the documentary came out, all of a sudden, all these different events started popping up. I've done 3 conferences already this year. Did Los Angeles, New Zealand, Auckland, and Calgary, and I still have 6 more.
Damn.
I've got to do Stockholm, Amsterdam, UK, Mount Shasta, Ohio,
Mount Shasta.
and then
Places full of white people.
Well, here's the thing. I have a friend whose wife believes that there are aliens under Mount Shasta.
Oh, I know that story.
Okay.
I
don't know anything about it other than that.
I made a trek. That's part of the Hollow Earth theory. I made a trek from Boulder to Mount Shasta myself. Just kind of drive around the place because I had read so many different things that Mount Shasta is a hot spot for really weird, type stuff.
Nice.
Jeff knows about that. What's the one here, Jeff?
Oh, Mount Adams, Camp SETI Ranch is.
Oh, yeah, you're going
Yeah,
on
you were
about
trying
that
to get us
last
to
week.
go out
Yeah,
there or
we gotta
something
go
like
up
that.
there and just sit because they do have free camping, but they also have you could sign up for their program.
Hey, I'm going camping on the 22nd.
Yeah,
we
we'll
should go
be-
there.
Yeah, I'll be in Denver. Sorry.
SETI has a ranch?
SETI Ranch, but it's not.
Oh, it's not SETI.
No, it's not SETI.
Oh,
yeah,
No, it's just called SETI.
yeah.
Ranch.
Yeah, it's like an acronym for something, but it's
Yeah,
like
search
this
for
guy,
extraterrestrials.
they
Yeah.
say they can summon UFOs and they
Maybe
see
it is
biological.
summon them?
They see Bigfoot, and a lot of people from different walks of life go there,
Maybe
and weird
that's where
things
I'll
happen
go.
to them. Man. It's
Yeah, there you
crazy.
go, Brogan. Maybe
Well,
that's where
no,
you go
because it's
camping.
the bacon savior in Weston. We're gonna go, and we hadn't made a for sure plan. Maybe I'll take you up on that, Jeff. You've just been hitting home runs lately with good recommendations
Let's
for
do
things.
it.
Dude,
Yeah.
we can call the Bigfoot guys, and maybe they.
Well, what we need to
they
do
can
is
tell
get
you
to
where
the
go.
bottom of my Titanic conspiracy that I am in love with.
What is your Titanic conspiracy?
I do not believe it's a Titanic on the bottom of the ocean. It's a USS Olympus. Do you know about that one, Mark?
Oh, the Titanic Olympic.
Oh, is the
Titanic. Oh yeah, I absolutely believe in that story.
yeah.
Really?
That one,
yeah,
that
yeah.
one's like not even out far fetched.
No, it's just straight up insurance fraud. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, when I was listening to the story, I'm going, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing.
I don't know about this one.
Oh, okay, I'll sum up for you really quick.
Okay.
So before the Titanic, there was a boat called the Olympic, the sister ship to the Titanic, and during one of its test runs, it got hit by a British military vessel. So we swap insurance cards, right? That should be
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
simple. Except the British military said, yeah, we're not paying. And so they had to pay for it themselves, and the repair, and it never did. You know how you hear the story when a car gets in a severe enough accident, if you don't total it, it never runs right again. It had a shimmy, and it listed, and the whole thing. It was in rough shape, and so they didn't know what to do, and so somebody came up with this plan. It's like, okay, we're already working on the Titanic. Let's sink the freaking Olympic, but let's rename them. So let's swap the names, and we'll send it out there, the maiden voyage of the Titanic, and we'll get a ship ready out in the way. Nobody's gonna die. That was the big thing. We'll get a guy, and that's where it always breaks down, right? It's
Yep.
the getaway car guy. Everybody's in the bank. The getaway guy's like, "You're taking too long," and he drives away. That's what happened. Where the Titanic was out there, they ran into an iceberg. Everything was fine, it was going, but the boat that was supposed to come and pick everybody up, and it was filled with blankets and life.
It was prepared.
It was prepared. The guy never showed. He's like, nah,
what a
I'm not
bitch.
doing it. And so, no, I mean, everybody in the know, they ran his career into the ground for no
hope
apparent
so,
reason
yeah.
whatsoever. But, the people died because of it. So, yeah, it was insurance fraud. That's all it was. It wasn't anything super sinister.
Yeah, that's why they'll never raise anything up from the Titanic, anything that would have a serial number on it.
No.
Like, why would you?
No.
Yeah,
You
because
can't,
J.P. Morgan, he's like, no, we're not going to
Yeah.
do that.
And-
That one got you, huh?
yeah,
was a
that
higher
one
side
got me.
chat
That was
one.
a higher side chat one, dude. And if you haven't done the higher side chat, you got to get out. Like, that's a good one.
That's an invite only. I can't solicit that one. I mean, I don't solicit anyway, but they've never asked me, mostly because they had Eric Dubay at one point. Eric Dubay is one of ours, and Eric doesn't like me, so.
Oh, is that the obnoxious artist one?
No, that's Matt Boylan.
Oh, I hate that guy.
Yeah. He was in the movie.
Yeah. Well, so there was 2 people in the movie I had a significant issue with. Him and his behavior is deplorable. You shouldn't treat your
Jeff,
people
can you
like
bring
that.
me my bag real quick? I want to break out some stuff.
But the dude with the ping pong balls and the hammer, that guy should not be around people. Oh my God.
That's Nathan Thompson. He's
Yeah.
really like that. I mean, that's not an act.
No,
Really?
there was no way that was an act. Like I was just like, oh man, I think I sent them a picture. I'm like, oh, it's not this guy we're interviewing, right? Because we're interviewing that guy. I'm gonna have to drink a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really cool what he could do with the hammers and the ping pong.
I mean, that was really cool. Yeah, you put a lot of work on that.
Yeah, the mental exercises. Okay, so here's just so you have a visual aid. I imagine this.
I
is
love
for
this
you,
because
if you have
we've got
questions.
we've got
can't
the
keep
live
that, though.
stream. So if you're a wonderful
I'm gonna take a
Patreon,
picture of it.
yeah. But if you're a wonderful Patreon, you could watch the live stream. You can go to patreon.com/Grit City Podcast, and for just $4 a month, you can actually check these things out as well. See it live when it happens. We send out messages. What are you doing? Oh, you're getting the Grit City podcast stickers, which
neat.
you also get. We'll give you a bunch of those,
Oh,
Mark.
right on.
But we get those to our Patreons as well. Also, if they're hanging out and checking out the Boot to Boot, we're going to be doing a pub crawl. And Mark, you should come to our pub crawl.
When is it?
Like, it is happening
Oh,
June
the Boot to Boot.
29th.
This is really cool.
If
We're
I'm
gonna
around-
need this for the questions.
Oh yeah. We'll hold on to it for a minute.
Yeah, there's if people want information, they can go to our social media and they can ask us about it. But we're going to be going from the Flying Boots and all the way down to the Rhine House, so we can drink a boot at the Flying Boots and then drink a boot at the Rhine House and probably boot ourselves at that point.
Yeah, there's gonna be some prizes at the camp.
So
bar.
now you're on
Yeah.
you're on my speech clipboard now.
Nice.
that
is
awesome.
super cool. So you did bring out some of the visual aids.
Props, yeah.
And one is just like straight up. It looks like a big coaster.
Yep.
And
Well, yeah, that's the one without the dome.
Okay.
So that's just kind of a.
but it shows what it would be looking like. And then
Yeah.
around, and so one of the things is around the edge it's the ice wall, correct?
Right, which would be Antarctica.
Okay, so Antarctica is just the entire ice wall.
Oh yeah, and it'd be way bigger than this. I mean, meaning the white part of Antarctica would be massive. It would be actually out to here. But
Yeah, because it's one of those travel sort of things. It's like people are saying, "Oh, we're going around it. We gotta make sure." And
And that's, by the way, the most common question. Again, it's like, there's so many different questions, but it's like, why doesn't the water fall off the edge? Why isn't it like the cosmic?
Where does the water go? That's
Yeah,
one of the questions that I have on written on a coaster.
So let's hit that way. Okay, let's set up the question then. So Brogan was at the bar last night.
and they jumped me. They thought that like I made a guy mad.
Oh,
jumped
you
you?
made a
just
guy
bringing
mad.
it up.
Oh yeah.
Just even-
It's got a knee jerk response.
Yeah.
So the whole story is the Bacon Savior's grandpa passed away, and he called and he's like, "Hey man, I'm kind of bummed out. You know,
Yeah,
grandpa
sorry to hear
died.
about that. Yeah.
You want to grab a beer?" I'm like, "Sure, meet me at the Apogee." Which shout out to the Apogee people. They said they were going to watch us on the live stream and
Cool.
listen.
Hopefully they are.
And so I was just talking to him about what I had going on because he's one of our sponsors and he has a security company. He's a great guy. And I was talking to him, and as soon as I said the word flat Earth, the guy sitting behind him tensed. I'm like,
Ooh.
and I noticed that. I'm like, that guy's body, he just
Yeah.
kind of tightened up.
Oh, yeah.
The guy next to, and I'm just telling him about it, right? And the guy next to me kind of scoffs. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? I've upset this guy too. And then
Flat Earth.
But then they wanted to know more, right? So I got to the guy to my left, and the guy to my right, Jeremy. Jeremy was the guy on the right.
Sure.
He said, "Oh, I'm glad you don't believe that," because I was about to have to move to the other side of the bar. I'm like, "Oh, just you wait, my friend. I am prepared for this conversation."
Right.
So I explain, that there's this documentary, they should watch it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting theory. This is my layman's explanation as to what it is.
Sure,
And
sure.
So I busted out these coasters because oddly enough, a coaster is a really good tool.
Well, depending on what kind of coaster and the quality of the coaster. But
Yeah, these are like
how many coasters do you have?
there's a couple of them. So we got some coaster questions.
I spent an hour with people collecting questions.
That's actually a good thing. Coaster questions. That could be like the name
Yeah.
of a segment.
well,
That's what Jeff called it.
yeah, coaster questions.
Coaster questions.
Yeah. We're
so
gonna have
as
to
you
do
can
that.
see, this is not my
No,
my
that's good.
finest work, but this is the Earth and it is flat.
Sure.
And I put a beer glass over the top of it, and I said, "This is basically the gist of how this works."
I mean, yeah, it's better than a pizza box. Shit.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I was working with what I had. I MacGyvered it together.
Yeah, you
know?
did. No, that's actually excellent.
So I set it down and I set the beer glass on top of it. And I just kind of explained, regurgitated the best idea that I could from the documentary that I watched.
Sure.
And they all said, "Nah, what?" And you just saw all of a sudden, the table behind us was involved in this conversation, and everybody was just interested. But some guys were really mad. They're like, "Are you gonna punch him in his neck?" I'm like, "Nobody's gonna punch anybody in anybody's neck."
Good God.
There's very little violence in flat Earth, just so you know.
Yeah, well, there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But some of the questions were,
Okay.
how does climate change work in a bubble?
Dun dun dun. I'm amazed, by the way, how many people bring up climate change to me, especially over the last year.
Really?
Yeah, in the first 2 years, nobody really brought up climate change. Okay, the easiest for me, I actually believe in some sort of climate change. Now, if it's cyclical, that's fine. But in a domed thing over there, think of it this: you've heard of the term greenhouse gases, obviously. Well, doesn't it seem a lot more intuitive if it's actually a greenhouse instead of the impossible
Look at that.
Oh shit! Duh.
That's awesome.
atmosphere versus vacuum of
yeah,
space
yeah.
type thing. And if it's an automated system, which I do think parts of it are, I think it's trying to compensate for what we're doing in here. I mean, you got to remember the internal combustion engine, known as the car. There are billions of those things running at any given time, and I think this system is trying to compensate for it. So yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
I
some
like
of
that one.
the other question.
yeah.
The seasons, which I guess goes along with the climate change. This
Sure,
is all from
sure,
the,
sure.
But so if it's summertime here and
Right.
winter there,
Right.
how does that work?
Well,
No,
I
no,
mean that just seems
well, I guess with the greenhouse gases.
Well, no, it's not just that.
it seems like even with like a terrarium type thing,
Well,
it's just
in
rotating.
a terrarium, by the way, the sun and the moon, which were so incredibly tiny, and the one bad thing I don't like about the flat Earth model is when they have to portray the sun, they have to draw it to where you can visually see it. But when you visually see it, it's several thousand miles wide, and we're saying, well, the sun and the moon are like 50 miles wide, so they're super, super small. But if they moved around this thing like a needle on a record player, they're also going in, and I know you guys probably don't do much vinyl. But
we understand that.
Oh,
We're
okay.
old,
I mean, you know the
we're old
concept.
enough to understand the
Back
concept
in
of
the
vinyl.
day. Do you remember 8
Remember,
tracks?
they're coming back now.
Yeah, so so it goes in and out, and I also don't think, by the way, it's also again part of the system. Whereas the sun is not the only heating device in this. You've also got the underwater conveyor system, which is the water. You've got the jet stream, which is up above, and then the magma system down below. So as far as creating seasons, it's all part of the system.
Interesting.
I'm just looking at some of these questions and going, man. this
Are
guy's-
they legible?
Yeah, they are. So there's a South Pole, right? Where's the South Pole on your?
Oh yeah. There is
South Pole.
there is no South Pole, and that's where it gets really, really weird.
Yeah, right?
Because
But Santa has to live somewhere.
there's
He's the North Pole,
He's
dude.
the North Pole, dude.
No one lives in the
oh,
south.
there's no South Pole.
No.
No. So the North Pole, which would be the magnetic center, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You have polar bears, by the way, only live in the North Pole. In case you were going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
So the North Pole is at the center, and that's magnetic north. But when you get out to the south, there is no freaking magnetic south. In fact, I watched a video just earlier this year, and he wasn't even one of ours. It was just like kids were asking people in Antarctica. It's like, what does a compass do in Antarctica? He goes, really, not much of anything. And that confirmed a subject matter expert that called me from. He was from Australian military intelligence. They're not a big group, but heck, I'm going to take what I get.
Hell yeah, right?
And I mean, it's not like it's like
you broke
United.
Scott.
Yeah, United States military intelligence, Australian, like I was out in New Zealand, and they don't even have an.
They did lose the emo.
They don't even have an
emo
air
war.
force. So, but anyway, you'd think that eventually on a globe. Sorry.
On the terrarium.
On the globe.
Oh, the globe.
eventually.
Oh, you have actually a little globe with you
Oh
too.
yeah,
Cute.
of course I got it. I know. Isn't it adorable? So if you go south of the equator on a globe, eventually magnetic south. Remember, because it's bipolar, not the weird mental thing. But if that means eventually south is going to take over, and it never does. And the Australian guy said that he goes south never dominates ever. It's only north.
So compass is only ever point north.
The compass is only
Yeah,
point
yeah,
north.
yeah.
But from our standpoint, we don't know any different. So when you're circumnavigating this thing, the compass magnetic north in the center of this thing, the compass looks like it always would. It looks perfectly normal. You would never ever know the difference. It's very, very clever design.
And this is like these questions. I'm going to assume some of these are like the ones that you had originally, where you're like, I'm going to disprove this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then now I'm not able to.
I sat on this 9 months before, and finally I give up. There's obviously things, but I've treated it like when you're turning in a test, like a blue book, and that was I was pretty sure I aced it, but I knew there was maybe something out there, and that's what I was waiting. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for some academic to call me and say, okay, you forgot to carry the 2. You can shut down your YouTube channel.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
so is McMurdo Base then just sitting out on the ice wall somewhere?
Yeah. It's in a tiny little bit, but not very far. Not very far at all. What's really interesting is, again, this thing has got to be at least several thousand miles thick, because our Navy was working on this. This is not secret information. Admiral Byrd was basically flying his own planes out there for the better part of 30 years. And then finally, when he did that 1954, and I know they didn't really show it on the documentary, the 1954 CBS show, The Longines Chronoscope. where he said, "Oh yeah, the place is just made out of money. We're going to be there for the next 100 years." And then he goes for his very next mission, which is Operation Deep Freeze, and then they shut down Antarctica for all time. The Antarctic Treaty is bulletproof. No corporation gets to go down there for any reason ever. For up until, in fact, it's not even up for debate until the year 2041.
Yeah, no country can claim any sort of
No
claim to it at all.
no land rights,
None.
no mineral
None
rights,
whatsoever.
nothing. And you say, "Oh, it's environmental." It's like, not in 1959. It's not. We didn't know what environmentalism was in 1959. America, we were like, what, 30-cent gas and double cheeseburgers.
Yeah,
and,
people didn't give a crap, and these
and
driving tanks.
doctors recommending smoking. Environmentalism? No. I mean, seriously, smoking advertisements were on the Flintstones.
Oh yeah.
Steve from the Apogee wants to know: can you actually dig to China?
No, and that's a really, really great question because people say, I know anyone listening to the audio don't know what I'm doing, but if I'm looking at this disc, they say, "How thick is this thing? How thick is the flat Earth?" And I go, "We don't even know, what this is, because the deepest hole ever drilled, which was by the Soviet Union and the Germans, was only 8 miles. Ever. The deepest hole we've ever drilled as a civilization is only 8 miles." And you're thinking, okay, what does that mean? Well, if they say that it's 4,000 miles to the center of this thing, well, 8 miles is barely a fraction of
Nothing.
a percent,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely nothing.
So why do we keep seeing these wonderful cross sections with the red and orange and yellow and white bands that are perfectly separated? Why don't you just say, in fact, they used to back in the old days say in small print, "We have no idea what's going on down there." But then they just took that away, and it's like, okay, fine, you took it away, but when you're 9 years old or you're 20, you're going to think that's gospel.
Yeah.
So
And it's one of those things where it's like we don't know, and like a lot of it's just kind of filling in the blanks with theory,
Right.
And everyone is now, like you just said, taking that to gospel,
Right. And by the way, to that question, so the answer is, can you dig your way to China? No, you can only dig 8 miles.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
All
it.
right then.
Gravity. So if everybody believes that gravity is being generated
Right.
because the Earth is spinning, we're floating around
Right.
in the universe. How does gravity work in this thing?
Dun, dun, dun. That, by the way, that is the number one answer that people will always, when they start getting befuddled, they'll say, but gravity, or the other one, it's like, but science. It's like, no, seriously, I hear that a lot. But science. It's like, what? What exactly about science? And then they finally come back to gravity, which is okay. Neil deGrasse Tyson said it best, and I will say this. In fact, I'll put that in the book that I'm working on, which is I will say that Neil deGrasse Tyson is extremely good at his job, where he said that gravity, we can't tell you, mainstream science can't tell you what gravity is. We can only tell you what it does. We can only tell you the symptoms of it because we can't replicate it. You'd have to have a really advanced technology, some sort of unified field or electromagnetic field, but we won't go into that right now. So he says that gravity, mainstream science says gravity is some invisible magnetic force, magical force that pulls things down to the center of a globe. And I will say, well, gravity is just some invisible magical force that pulls things straight down. That's the difference. Now, some people will come in and say, well, it's also density. It's a combination of density. Some people don't believe in gravity at all when it comes to the flat Earth theory. They'll say, well, it's just density. I'm going, well, it can't be all density. But what I mean by density is the air that we're breathing now is kind of like a thin version of water. It's 4 parts nitrogen, 1 part oxygen. And things rise and fall. So if you dig a helium balloon and you let it go, it's going to rise. That's density. That's an example. It's like lighter things will go upwards. No different than if you took a beach ball underneath a swimming pool, it's going to always pop up.
Yeah, totally.
So, but I say, well, density can't deal with all of it, because if you're in a fighter plane and it's a sealed sealed cockpit, and you pull it up, well, you're sealed. It's not like density's pushing you down into the seat. It's also got to be some sort of gravitational force. Gravity by any other name. So there you go.
Okay.
Nice. I like that one. I like that one.
So that was for you, Steve.
Thanks,
Steve was
Steve.
very excited about this.
And by the way, when you're done, I want to mention I want to react to the bracing when you said whoever was tensed up.
Yeah,
when he heard
that
the
was
term.
Jeremy.
Okay, Jeremy. I want to mention.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
I want to
Yeah.
address that.
The Bible, and how does religion fit in with this theory? I don't know. That's the question.
The Bible.
Bible.
No, it's good. It's actually, in fact, it's a good thing you brought it up. It's one of the chapters I still haven't finished yet, which is at least half of, and I can only really speak for the Americans and Canadians and some of the Europeans, the English-speaking countries, at least half of the community in English-speaking countries are hardcore Christian when it comes to the flat Earth. And the reason is because they immediately jumped into this and said, okay, how does it relate to the Bible? And a lot of pastors are having a really, really tough time. In fact, there was the largest church in Canada is trying to toss one of their members. I just found this out just a couple weeks ago
Wow.
because she put on a flat Earth conference in Calgary. and they don't want to be tied to it.
Oh,
Here's the big problem is that most of, in fact, 99% of we've had people, of course, go with a fine-tooth comb through the Bible. I'm not going to quote chapter and verse here, even though it's Sunday, which is there. Every other story in the Bible, and we'll get to a few of them real quick, but except for one, talks about a flat world. It's a flat earth Bible, with the exception of one, which is Isaiah 40:22, he who sitteth upon the circle of the earth. Well, in the ancient Hebrew, circle is not globe, it's not ball, it's not sphere, it's a completely different word.
It's circle.
Circle can be this. Circle can be your dinner plate.
A coaster.
Yeah, circle could be two-dimensional. Every other story, though, I mean, everything from Genesis, the firmament separating the waters above and waters below, the story of Joshua, where he asked God to hold the sun and the moon in the sky for an extra day so he could slay more enemies, which seems a lot easier to do in a snow globe than it would be this. And my favorite, of course, the Tower of Babel, which is, okay, if the Tower of Babel, by an advanced civilization that was way before us, which nobody talks about, which was supposed to be this bridge to God, bridge to heaven, well, where's that going on a spinning globe? You're talking about a needle that's sticking outside of a globe, which is spinning like this.
Space elevator.
Yeah, and also going around the sun and also going around the galaxy. That needle is not staying in the same place twice. But if it's on a flat, stationary, snow globe-y pizza box thing, it's going one way. It's going one way. It's going up. And so the pastors are having a really, really tough time. They're using Isaiah 40:22 as like it has veto power against the rest of the Bible. That's the only thing. They're hanging on with their fingernails.
And I mean, not to completely and utterly disparage any sort of religions or something like that, but there's a lot of those that will take one line and mark that as exactly what the entire thing or what their belief is going to be. They're going to cater that towards whatever they want, the narrative that they want there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And they're having a tough time with it, mostly because of the parishioners. You don't want to be. And there's a few pastors that have taken the leap. But do you all of a sudden want to be that pastor that goes in front of the congregation? It's like, okay, we're a flat Earth church now.
Yeah,
I mean, well, because there's too many people, because it's spread so far and wide. There's too many people that are asking pastors in their spare time off the record. It's like, look, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does the flat Earth mean to our church? What does it mean to the Bible? Because they think it's the newest and most exciting thing in religion. And by the way, it's not just the Christians. I mean, the other four religious houses, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam, they're all on board in the same thing. Three of them, share some of the same stories anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And so, I mean, that's kind of funny because it also goes back to the tensing up in terms of going back to that, because it's like, suddenly you get a whole group of parishioners being like,
do you want to be? Remember, the church groups are very competitive. You could use that against a church. It's like, oh yeah, XYZ church down the street, they believe in flat Earth. But you don't. So recruit anybody you can. Let's get them out of there.
But you remember, I had that same problem with just talking about Bigfoot, because we had the Bigfoot guys on. I talked about that on the last episode. Just people want to fight
the punch you in the neck guy.
Right?
He was just like,
there was a guy who got violently
angry.
angry at him for believing, or at least we were just having, having Bigfoot people on. Open your mic.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just talking. I was talking about it at a bar with friends. Just, hey, we had these Bigfoot guys on and they got angry. So yeah, I imagine.
How does nighttime and daytime work if there's no curvature of the Earth for the moon to hide behind?
Excellent question. Okay, first off, this is a hard one for people to get their heads around, because the first thing, it's not, because once you do the flat Earth, that's just the beginning of it. You also got to get rid of the sun and the moon how you know it. So the sun is not 400,000 miles wide and 93 million miles away, and the moon is not 2,000 miles wide and 250,000 miles away. They are super, super tiny and super, super small. So when they just go off into the distance, because everyone would say, well, how do you even have time zones? Wouldn't the sun be shining on everything all the time? It's like, not if if it's really, really small. And the other thing is the thickness of the atmosphere. Believe it or not, it counts for a lot. A good example would be if you go down even, 200 feet in any sort of ocean and try to find the sun. Right, the sun gets, all of a sudden gets weaker and weaker, and then it is gone. And remember, we're talking about clear water. The same thing applies with vast, pretty long distances when it comes to our atmosphere right now. Remember, 4 parts nitrogen, 1 part oxygen. Now, if our atmosphere was ripped off for whatever reason, if you took this snow globe and turned it into a vacuum, then everything would change. All visual dynamics would absolutely change. And the sun, it would be up for a much, much longer time, because it's not punching through a lot of what I call thin water.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
I
love these questions, by the way, Brogan. You need to do more coaster questions.
These are good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you should just like canvas the bars and just start.
We kind of do that
So,
anyway.
so,
Yeah.
so if you can't fly around, so if you can't fly around the world,
Right.
how does flying around the world work?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, first off, when you're flying around, again, if I take my finger, and if I don't have this, I just use like a dinner plate.
Yeah.
But if I take my finger and draw a big circle around the dinner plate here, technically I've circumnavigated it. You know,
Yes, you did.
I came back to the same spot. Does that mean that this is a globe, sphere, ball? No, it doesn't. But you're saying, well, wouldn't my instruments tell me that I did something weird? Wouldn't it be like, you did something really funky there? It's like, no. First off, remember, the GPS system, otherwise known as the Global Positioning System, was designed by the United States military in the 90s. It is a U.S. military system. It is going to tell you exactly what it wants to tell you. And second, of course, is magnetic north. That's the big one, which is magnetic north reacts the exact same way. I know on this, you're flying actually straight. You're not making a really, really slow left-hand turn or a really, really slow right-hand turn.
It's like NASCAR.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, turn left. And they give awards for that. So, no, it's fine. But when it comes to this, it's so vast that you would never ever notice the slow left-hand turn or slow right-hand turn, and your instruments are not going to tell you it anyway.
I love that.
All right, we've asked the Dig to China question.
Yep.
We've asked about Mercado Base. What is
McMurdo base?
McMurdo Base?
Mercado.
Large Mercado base.
Bad handwriting.
Is that the Mexican base?
So Mars.
Yeah.
Right? We look through a telescope, or you see
Right.
pictures of Mars on a
Yeah,
telescope.
yeah, yeah.
Is it another flat Earth out there just turned on its side, or is that just a painting of
No,
the
it's
side
just
of
it's just a light in the sky. I've had so many amateur astronomers come at me and say, "Look, I've seen the moons of Jupiter. I've seen them through my telescope." I'm going, "Okay, fine. Take a pair of binoculars. Go to a planetarium." I know that dates me. Nobody goes to planetarium anymore.
planetariums are awesome.
I know,
They
aren't
are,
they?
they
It's
are.
like Laser Floyd. No, nobody went during the normal week. And that's why the weekends were always such a big moneymaker for them. It was
Oh, God, yeah.
Laser Led Zeppelin, Laser Floyd, Laser. Anyway, so if say you take a pair of binoculars to a planetarium, and I told people this, and I say, okay, look at Jupiter. I go, does it look more or less spherical with your binoculars? They go, that's not the point. You're in a building. I go, yeah, that actually is my point, because when you
We're
walk
in a building.
yeah, exactly. You walk out of that building, you're just in a much, much bigger building. And then, of course, it's like, well, who built it? Who built it?
That's on one of these coasters.
Oh, okay, we'll get to that then. Okay, is that the next one?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
might-
let's just
might
do it.
as
Yeah,
well
let's get
be.
right into it.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, the first, I got to mention that we're talking about something that people did not build. Our civilization had nothing to do with the construction of this place.
Yeah.
So the question is, who did? And it's like, all right, well, you're talking about a very big question here, and you can only go one of two paths. Are we talking about an advanced civilization that is much older and much more powerful than ourselves? And you say, well, is it aliens? Doesn't really matter. They could be frost giants. I don't care. If you're going on that path, or it
Yeah.
could be the divine, but then you're kind of just splitting hairs, because one man's advanced tech is another man's deity.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we could just be somebody's pets.
Yeah, you could be.
big
I mean,
aquarium.
like-
Seriously.
like for-
Terrarium.
Ant farm.
Yeah, like for example, that thing over there, it's completely self-contained compared to this. This requires they're roughly the same size, but this requires a massive system behind it. You need a solar system with a sun. You need a galaxy around that and a universe around that. Remember, if this was actual size, the solar system alone would be, I think, 2,000 feet in every direction.
Yeah, and that's a tiny
And that's a tiny,
Earth right there.
that's a tiny Earth. And you're talking about huge amounts of calculus and quantum mechanics. That needs nothing. Who's to say there isn't 7 billion little followers in there right now?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Well, when you start thinking about this, size of atoms and
No, yeah.
smaller things. All right, Starfish Prime. Does that mean anything to you? It's just written down.
Have you heard of Starfish
a secret
Prime?
code?
Is that one of the long distance photography things from Hubble?
I think so.
Okay, well, it's same question. In fact, I had a guy from the UK. He just beat this one to death. He just every question. It's like, I saw Saturn, blah blah blah. I saw Mars. I saw the circle on Jupiter. I'm going, it's all the same answer. You keep asking me the same freaking question. And it doesn't matter. Whatever you're seeing in the sky is a really really high resolution system. I mean, what are we at? 4K, 8K now?
I think some are 8K. Well, it's not really 8K.
All right, imagine a million
kinda-
K. Imagine
yeah.
Mandelbrot resolution. That's what we're talking about here. Something that can actually adjust to the technology of the telescopes that are looking at it.
Astronauts, the space station.
Yeah.
It's the Mission Impossible line. Oh, it's way worse than you know. But what I'm saying is NASA, the only reason NASA was created was to keep this thing under wraps. NASA's, look, and I'm not saying that these guys are wearing black hats and twirling handlebar mustaches. I'm not saying that. They're doing it for God and country. Most of them are ranking military people. I mean, got to remember, everybody that's on by the time you get off the ISS, you're a full bird colonel in the United States Air Force. And some have been like lieutenant generals. So if you make it that far, if you know anyone in the military, by the time you make colonel, you basically know how to follow orders. These guys, look, they're doing it for God and country. They are told, look, you're going to fake something. Now, do they divulge to them the reason why? No. I think they told that with the Apollo program, which is why all those guys turned to the bottle and became recluses. They felt super, super guilty about it, because I do think that the movie The Right Stuff, they were looking for heroes, and I think that's what they signed up for.
And it seems like, especially with like a military thing, suppression of information to avoid a panic situation sort of thing.
FDR, one of our late great presidents, his quote was, I think, the best. He goes, "Only tell the public as much truth as they can handle." And I think back in 1960, people say, well, would you have told the world in 1960 when you figured this thing out? No, you wouldn't. I wouldn't have done it either. I honestly would have been like, yeah, I'm going to hold on to this until...
Well, you even yourself sat on it for 9 months trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your whole worldview gets shifted.
Yeah, so how long does the military sit on this? It's like until they can figure out a way to put it out to the public in a way that they can control. And honestly, look, we're in that spot right now, which is why I think it's coming out. You've got high-speed internet, social media, and 6 billion smartphones that are out there. I mean, you're in a perfect spot to, like, the old criminal thing, let's get our stories straight. You could spin the same story to everybody, and they'd all have it in 30 minutes or less.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got any other questions there?
The only other ones were about the Ring of Fire, like lava flows and the tides.
Okay, I'll do both those, and I got to do the tense, the bracing thing.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
That's
so
the last question.
okay, so the Ring of Fire, the lava. Look, the lava's, people didn't like that clue as much when I put it out there, because I go, look, every system has got to be artificial, including the magma system. And they say, well, you can't, and that's really tough for some people to get. It's like, oh, yeah, how can you fake a magma system? I'm going, look, if you have a pet tarantula in his terrarium, and you have a light bulb, you have a little water and everything, you're not going to leave anything to chance. It's all going to be under your design, and whatever it is, even if it's a heated floor, you're gonna do that. Sorry, that's the short answer to that one. What was the other thing? Tides?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
tides.
tides. Tides I actually like, because the tides, everyone says, oh, well, it's got to be the moon, right? It's this 2,000-mile wide object which is doing. It's like, no, the moon and the sun and the stars and the planets are just a clock system. It's just that the moon is telling you when it's going to kick in. The last thing you would ever do from a design standpoint, I'm telling you guys as a geek, is that you would never take an extremely powerful directional gravitational force and put it on an object that's only 50 miles wide. You'd never ever do that. It would be problematic, to say the least. You would control the tides no differently than you can control gravity and the physics engine that revolves around it, which is if you have if your gravity system is artificial and it's on here, the tides are just a slight adjustment to that, and you do it down below.
And when you say artificial, it's like even going into some other being, like whomever created this thing, like It doesn't matter at that point. It's artificial to them, but since we are in this, I mean, it's what you're saying is artificial is just natural to us because it's always been there in our lifetime.
Exactly. If you know it, again, which is I love the movie, if you watch The Clues, I love the movie M. Night Shyamalan's, and I know people don't like it.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I know. Well, no,
Please say The Village. Please say The Village.
It is The Village.
Oh, I
it
love
is
The
The Village.
Village.
No, I mean, he wrecked a lot of stuff, no question. I mean, that's what you do when you win an Oscar your first time out. It's like, he's golden. And I'm like, no, not so much. So, but The Village was brilliant.
I love The Village.
Because the concept, and that really ties to this, which is all you did is take kids out to the middle of a wildlife preserve, and you can tell them any story you want. And like you said, then it's natural to them.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets interesting. What's interesting is when the parents die, nobody's lying at that point. Everybody is living, they could all pass polygraphs at that point, because it's like, yeah, we all live here. It's the year 1800 and such. There's monsters in the woods, and you should never ever go out there. And it was brilliant to me. But I liked it as a movie initially, but when I saw this, I'm just going, oh yeah, Truman Show is one thing, but the concept of telling people you can do stuff without the Truman Show if you wanted to. So
interesting. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the projects that you have. So you started with the YouTube page.
Right.
Let everyone know about your YouTube page.
Right. Well, by the way, how long do you want to go? I don't really care.
Oh yeah, we can keep going.
Oh, okay, good.
When's the
Yeah.
next one coming?
Okay,
Not till one. We got a while.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me do the bracing thing.
The bracing thing. Yeah.
And here's the reason why I mentioned this, because I've seen it over and over again. But the brace part really caught me, because when I first looked at when a first flat Earth video was recommended to me on YouTube, and I clicked on it, I braced. I actually flinched and I got a visceral response. I mean, I actually got flushed, and I thought, and I caught myself doing it. It's like, wait a minute. You know, I'm your average tech geek, right? I have clicked on a lot of weird, funky stuff on the internet. We all know what we're talking about. We've all been there, right? We've clicked on stuff we probably shouldn't have. And even then, I wasn't really embarrassed by it. I was like looking over my shoulder maybe. But in this case, I was really embarrassed. And it's like, why? It's flat Earth. Why would I get embarrassed about this? And then I was like, wait. And then I started digging into it. The more I dug into it, it was the conditioning. And that is, think about it this way.
Okay.
In the American classroom, I can't speak for other countries, but in the American classroom, we all know what's in the corner of any given room. You have the American flag up top, and somewhere in that room, you've got a big globe.
Is a
right?
globe, yep.
And they are synonymous. They are there, right there, right? And that is there from age 6 until the time you graduate from high school. And remember, when some people, you know, by the time they graduate from high school, they're willing to fight for that flag. You know, and yeah, of course, they know about America and all this stuff, but it's the flag. It's the icon. Oh, yeah, I'll fight for America. What's the difference between that and this? Almost nothing. For them, visually, this is iconic to them. It is like, America is my home, or America's my home, but this is my home.
Yeah, and this is where it is on my home.
Yeah, and people get really, really bent out of shape about it. Excuse me. Where there was a guy that called me up on a radio station, and it was, you know, they were taking calls. We're not taking calls, are we?
No, we're not.
Oh, okay. So they were taking calls, and they said, and he goes, "How dare you? How dare you tell me the world isn't what I think it is? Because it's the only conspiracy you can't run away from. If you don't want to look into 9/11 or JFK or Boston bombing or Sandy Hook or any of the other stuff, you don't.
Ooh, I love Sandy Hook too.
Well, we can get into that later. If you want. But you can walk away. There are some secrets that can be hidden in the desert, and you don't have to look at them. But when it comes to this, you have to resolve it. Which is, once it gets in your head, it's really like a marble in a paint can, and you can't get rid of it forcibly. You either have to be like, okay, I'm just not going to look at it anymore. You know, like decide not to smoke anymore. I'm just not going to buy cigarettes anymore. Or I'm going to be on board. And that's why we have a 99% retention rate. No lie.
Really?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. If you get into this, once you're in, because you can't go back, there's nothing to go back to. It is the best example of red pill, blue pill I've ever seen, which is, you know, the line, which is, of course, it's like, even if you could go back.
Would you?
Would you?
Yeah.
I mean, because seriously, once I've seen people try to go back, and once they try, it's like, it just loses its shine. It's like, oh, yeah.
That's
It
interesting.
wasn't there anyway.
Like, I love the fact that you talk about the 99% retention rate, because it goes into community. And we talked about like the first convention, and now you're going to all of these different things, and you've got all of these different appearances. You've got a convention coming up in October, I believe. November. November is
the big U.S. one, aside from the Mount Shasta one. The big U.S. one's in Dallas. Mm-hmm. That is done by the same guy that did Raleigh and the same guy that did Denver that I walked out on last year because of the whole Logan Paul thing.
Oh.
Which is, I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
But luckily we didn't cover that in the documentary. Did anyone even know
Logan
who
Paul's trash. Yeah, he's
Logan
trash.
Paul's trash. Nobody should ever talk to him or
Well, then let's not give him our time.
Oh,
There
good,
you go.
good. So, but he's so Dallas is the big American conference, and I can't wait. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
When you go to a conference like this, we go to conventions. We go to NorwestCon almost every year, and it's a big party atmosphere. Is it that sort of same thing when you're going to these?
Yeah. It's way bigger in terms of energy. Because for a lot of these people, it's the first time they can be in a room where they're not being judged by friends and family and coworkers. I mean, there's a lot of, the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, you're some sort of idiot, or they question your education system. I mean, look at Kyrie Irving. They went after. Was it Duke that he went to? I mean, anyone the public that comes out about this, they're like, what school did you go to?
Yeah.
And
where did you learn this?
Yeah, but the energy is off the charts. People don't sleep for days, even if they're in their hotel room. It's like, I got to get back down there and talk to more people. They close the bars. I mean, they'll drink and party, but it's mostly just, they just talk. And the meetups are like that too. We knew that when the regional meetups that we do, they're just impromptu. We've done a whole bunch up in the Northwest. They're like that too, where people, they go to the restaurant. Oh, we'll schedule like 2 hours. Restaurant's closing. They're flipping the tables.
They're like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's like, get out of here. It's like, oh, you seriously? It's like, where can we go?
So it's a lot of people that are building relationships and community by going through this. And I think that's one of those things that anyone's looking for in those sort of terms.
Everybody wants to be part of something. And this is one of those things where it's kind of a double whammy. Double barrel, which is, first off, if anyone had any doubt about having a purpose in the universe, even though if you don't know what that purpose is, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you get a purpose now. The universe isn't this weird, huge, impossible thing. No, it's super intimate. You're on it, and you're here for a reason. And then everyone's like, "Oh, a reason?"
Yeah.
And they don't know what that reason is, but they're searching. They're searching for it. And the other thing is, of course, when you're there with people, it's like, we're all in it for a reason. It's like some sort of reason. And if you're on the biblical side, you've got a whole different track. I mean, if you're already a strong Christian, you become like an ultra Christian because of this. And if you fall, and I got to tell you, I got to mention this. I've had so many people in the hardcore Christian community have said, I've never seen a recruiting tool like this is.
Really?
Oh yeah, because people.
Wow. Yeah.
People that were away from the church, they're back. And honestly, I will say this, even though like I'm the freshman recruiter for this whole thing, I fell away, doing the tech thing and doing as much stuff as I did. I fell away. I didn't go to church for years, and I still don't. But I came right back to spirituality, which was okay, because if it was built like this, then it's not organic in any way, shape, or form. It was built like that, which means it was built by somebody. And whatever side you pick, that means it was built by somebody. Now, does that mean it's the divine? Not necessarily, unless you're in the hardcore Christian. But at the very least, whoever built this is one step closer to knowing God's phone number than you are.
And that's one of those things too. I mean, as compared to ants or a tarantula or a fish in an aquarium, it's that same sort of thing. It's like we are still the same set.
You gotta check it out.
I know, it's cool.
That was really cool. In fact,
was really neat.
I haven't even had that for I think like 3 months. There was a
really
company
cool.
out of Italy called PowerCoin that makes silver
Power coin.
PowerCoin.
Something on the bottom as well.
And it's an actual coin.
Oh wow,
It's
It's actually
it's like a 2-ounce silver coin.
Great
Where
Conspiracies coin.
Exactly, part of their series. I think they just started the series because of this, actually. And they said, "Hey, would you take that with you on interviews if we sent one to you?" And I go,
You're like,
"Yeah,
"Oh,
absolutely."
shit, yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
will.
"Are you kidding? That'd be awesome." And they
I
go,
kind of want to buy one just to keep it around my house to freak out my in-laws. Like I was looking at that dude with the cool motorcycle and the thing and all. And his
"Oh
little,
yeah, Chris Pontius."
yeah, his fancy little thing. I'm like, man, that'd be what in hell like in that coffee table.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
That's the kind of like because I don't know how on board I am with any of the idea of this, but God, that's some good brain candy.
But you just throw it out
Oh
there.
yeah,
because
yeah.
people
Visually,
question.
it is an eyeful. He went to that Raleigh conference and his booth, which was they were all lit up. It's all LED stuff. It was just amazing. It was looking like a fireworks show. It was really really.
but
neat.
not that kind of fire.
Not that kind of fireworks show. No, no. I see what you did there. That's good.
Good
that's good.
callback.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to take a break.
Oh, we do got to take a
okay.
break?
We got to take a break.
All right, we're going to take a break because we are going to come back and talk with you a little bit more
Okay.
about this. But yeah, we got to refill our beers and probably go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and probably pay some bills.
Oh,
Listen
yeah.
to the commercials.
Oh, okay.
All right. What's his name? Skarsgård in it.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
guy's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the father from Thor, yeah, he's but you don't really care. No, it's an all-star cast. I mean, it is real. I mean, it's an all British production, and yeah, it's really freaking depressing. Because you don't realize how bad it was and how bad it could have been. And I know we have to go, but I have to mention this, which is I have no doubt after watching that, and I haven't even gotten to the 5th episode. The 5th episode doesn't air until Monday. That the fall of the Soviet Union was in no small part because of what happened here.
Really?
Yeah, it cost them dearly.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. I'm
it
going to have
cost
to
them-
watch
It
that
cost
then.
them huge amounts of...
I've read about Chernobyl, but just articles and whatever you find.
Oh,
and stuff like
it was
that.
the follow-up. Forget about just evacuating Chernobyl. All the money they had to plow under so many hundreds and...
So let's just keep everybody that's now listening. We're recording again?
Yeah, we're recording.
All right, so
alright,
we
okay.
were just talking about Chernobyl,
Oh,
the
yeah, Chernobyl, the
series
series.
on HBO. We were talking about Westworld. We got all
Yeah.
excited during our break. So, but I want to continue on the conversation about Chernobyl.
Oh, yeah,
So
well-
I wanted to catch everybody else up.
So the point was, yeah,
Good job.
if you feel like you're too happy today, go watch a couple episodes of Chernobyl because it is just brutal. And yeah, I think they ran out of money. I think it literally they spent so much, and they killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they just didn't tell the problem that the Russians have, and you see this with different fields.
Oh no, I lost my beer.
Is they wanted to save face. They never want to look bad in
yeah.
front of other countries.
Absolutely.
Now, I'll give you a quick example of that was when they were trying to get the frickin' graphite off the roof from the core. It was exploded, right?
Oh, Jesus.
And they were trying to get the graphite off the roof, and the robotics were failing. They called the West Germans, which of course they didn't want to do because this was in the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to save face, and so they didn't even tell them. And so the West Germans sent them a remote control police robot, and it died within 60 seconds because the gamma radiation just torched
Oh
the
my
circuits, right?
God.
And what they said was, well, it was rated for 2,000 radagens or whatever it was, and that particular area was getting 12,000 radagens. And the point was the Russian government, because they did not want to admit how bad it was, lied about that, even though they knew full well that robot was going to fail. Because if the West Germans know, the Americans were going to know, and so
Yeah.
it's
They were just hoping that there'd be a miracle at that point.
yeah. But after the 4th episode, you'll know if you watch it. When you get to the 4th episode, I was so down that I had to go watch one of my happy trailers for Flat Earth. I had to sit down. It's like, what's the most inspirational trailer I have? Crank up the music. And it's like, okay, I'm feeling better. Yeah.
That's like some of that
So-
stuff is heavy, man. Shit.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Nova? Like PBS's Nova?
Wait, you mean the old version or what they have now?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't watch it much because PBS is a huge science backer. You remember, I did a segment with National Geographic.
But like all of science is wrong?
no.
Okay.
But I don't really watch it much.
So there's a very interesting. So we donate $5 a month to PBS, and you get access to their premium app on your Fire Stick or whatever.
Oh,
you've got.
really?
Right.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's totally worth it. But on Nova, they actually have a really cool thing about Chernobyl when they built the shell over it. They
Yeah,
made a whole
the-
documentary of how
Oh,
how
yeah.
hard it is.
The sarcophagus.
yeah, the
Yeah,
sarcophagus over that was so cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm
but-
depressed
but-
to watch Chernobyl.
Well, yeah. By the time you got to remember that episode 5 is when they finally kick in the sarcophagus. But up until that point,
You don't know what's gonna.
it was just
yeah.
it was just a nightmare because everyone was in such denial. Everyone wanted, even the lower end people, like when the
Wait a minute, sir, Chernobyl goes all the way up to present day? Because this is some shit they just did last year. Like, this
Oh
is a
yeah.
whole thing where
Well,
they,
that's
like,
the
put
that's
a dome
the,
over it.
that's the new sarcophagus.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
old sarcophagus. I mean, yeah. It's been a problem for 30. It's
They
never.
have
it's-
to- yeah,
it's-
it'll never not be a problem.
Yeah, it's never not going to be a problem. But even like the regional administrators and politicians, they were lying. They were lying to their people above them, all the way up to Gorbachev, because he was the guy that was doing the thing back then, because they wanted to save face. No one wanted to admit how bad it was because they were afraid of repercussions. Like the guy that supposedly didn't.
individual repercussions.
Exactly.
You're like,
Well, I mean,
"Shit,
because
dude."
the Soviet Union back in the 80s, I mean, there were firing squads. And,
Yeah.
some of the people that were involved, the ones that didn't die of cancer, they were shot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and mostly because it cost them a huge amount of money and resources. And I think that's one of the big contributing factors of why the Soviet Union is no longer there.
Wow.
I know.
All right,
and
you guys
and when you watch this, you'll understand it. Because you're doing the numbers in your head and you're going, That cost him a pretty penny, and this
That
cost,
wasn't cheap.
Yeah, that wasn't
That
cheap.
wasn't.
Yeah, that like when something breaks, you hear that's like that sounded expensive. Yeah, that's what it was like all the time with what happened there. Anyway, so
So Scott, you're into conspiracy theories.
I am. Yeah.
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 Drop us one.
Yeah.
Drop the beat, dog.
Yeah.
Oh man, you just put me on the spot.
I know I did.
Can't come up with any right now.
what do you want me to rattle off some?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
so
love
what
all
are some,
conspiracy
so what are
theories,
some?
man.
I mean, some of the other conspiracy theories that I'm not going to say that you believe in, but you're knowledgeable of, and how do you?
All of them.
Really?
Well, that's how I got into flat Earth.
Okay.
I was even starting to get into stuff like the Hollow Earth.
I love
In
Hollow
fact,
Earth.
The Hollow Earth is how I got into flat Earth.
Okay.
Because I was looking at Hollow Earth, going, and that's how I got to Mount Shasta. You know, I was like,
Yep,
oh yeah,
yep,
Hollow Earth.
yep.
And then Admiral Byrd, but that's when everything went sideways because Admiral Byrd, who's tied to the Hollow Earth theory, because he took this rickety plane up there in 1926, supposedly turned into this journey to the center of the Earth thing. I'm going, ooh, I want to know more
I
about
love that movie too.
And then all of a sudden he goes out to the Antarctic, and that's where he spent the rest of his life, was just
Yeah.
in planes in Antarctic, just flying around. And so, but other conspiracies, I don't know. My top ones, JFK is always a good one. Pearl Harbor, always a good one. Smaller ones like Sandy Hook, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Sandy
But-
Hook's one I'm very interested in.
But I do have, before we even get into Sandy Hook, I want to mention I have a conspiracy. In fact, I was into conspiracies enough. I had enough knowledge on them. I like some, I don't like others, that I even came up with one on my own. I have an exclusive on one of them.
Really?
I do.
I want to hear your exclusive
Ready?
conspiracy theory.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Panama Canal.
Wait.
Exactly.
What about it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the. It's like,
Yeah,
what about it? It's a
con-
thing.
It's
a
a canal
thing.
that
Yeah, it's a canal.
connected the
Yeah.
oceans together
And-
for transport.
And exactly, and it's still and it made
Yeah,
the-
it's
it
still
made,
working. It's
made,
great.
made the Americans a lot of money before we finally turned it over to Panama, and who knows what sort of money things.
Oh, yeah,
change
we're
hands.
still making
Yeah,
money.
I know.
I
we're
think
still
don't
making
they
money.
use the dollar in Panama? I believe the currency there is the U.S. dollar.
Probably.
But it's a classic definition of a conspiracy, and it's not exactly a sinister thing. It's for the greater good. And let me explain real fast.
Greater good.
The greater good. Oh yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
Hot, that was Hot Fuzz.
Yep,
right?
Hot
Yeah,
Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. I love that line, and
love
I
that.
love it when like movie reviewers throw that in there. The greater good. He's like, shut it. So I'm sorry. So what happened was, let's take a big engineering project like the Hoover Dam. Right, a big thing. Lots of cement, enough cement to make sidewalks from here to forever.
Mm-hmm.
And during that, the total number of people that died during the construction of the Hoover Dam, I think, was like 70, which is what you would expect. And like people falling, into the cement. It's like, oh, he's not coming back.
Yeah, OSHA wasn't around for that.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
Yeah, and so it's like 70 people died during the Hoover Dam, right? And that was mostly because of falling. Well, the Panama Canal was just one big ditch, that was lined with cement. You know,
Yeah.
how many people died during the construction of that?
How many people?
Better part of 6,000.
Wow. So they're part of the cement then at that point.
Well,
That thing is
no,
haunted as fuck.
and you say, well, that's not, and I go, and you're saying, ooh, that's sort of interesting, and I say, yeah, but they died of malaria and yellow fever, and you go, and you're going, oh, well, that makes sense because malaria and yellow fever, and I go, yeah, but here's where the conspiracy part comes in. I go, and you're gonna say, well, it's not like they knew that 6,000 Americans were gonna die down there, and I go, yeah, they did, because we didn't start the Panama Canal; it was the French. The French started in the late 1800s, and because French were on top of it, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is strategically." I mean, everybody knows it's the strategic military choke point of all oceans, and they lost so many men. They lost over 22,000, I think.
Jesus.
To where the French people were like going, the rumors were starting to spread. They were protesting. It's like, sons and fathers were dying, and this was.
They would go and never come back.
They're never coming back, and like there was a whole like a little cottage industry of like cadavers for universities coming out of it. It was bad. It was super
Yeah.
bad.
I had heard that about the malaria killing so many people at the Panama Canal. I didn't. So what's the conspiracy part?
Well, the conspiracy part is the French left. It was like, screw it. They put down their shovels and they left. And the Americans like, hey, let's get down there.
Yeah.
And they went down. The point is that the Americans knew that they were going to kill 6,000 civilians. Oh, yeah. And they let it happen anyway.
Yeah.
And in fact, they would have let it go for even up to 10,000. And you're saying, well, and it's not necessarily a sinister conspiracy, but it's just to show you what people do for the greater good. It's like, look, we're going to finish this thing no matter what.
It's the cost benefit analysis. I just recently went to to Weird Elephant at the Grand Cinema, rewatched Fight Club, and it just reminds me of the
I know that line.
insurance expressive.
I know it by heart, which
Yeah.
is if the cost of the settlements is less than the cost of a recall, we don't do one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't say you can't put a price on human life. You absolutely can. We do.
Yeah.
We
Been
do
doing
in
it
the
since
every
life
began. Forever.
every day.
So the point was they didn't tell the guys going down there. Remember, this wasn't military. These were engineers. Like, yeah, go down there. And it's like, you should have probably told them, oh, yeah, by the way, you have a 1 in 8 chance of catching malaria and dying. And, that's like, huh.
Then they probably wouldn't have gone.
They
and
probably
then,
wouldn't have gone.
Then you don't get the progress that you get. And that's one of those other things, too, that I don't think people necessarily realize, that a lot of our leaps in technology have gone due to human suffering.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that in the comfort of what we have now.
And real quick, I mean, every major American war is based on the schoolyard principle of hitting somebody in the back of the head, and when they turn around, you point at the guy next to you.
Yeah.
It is literally that simple. It is one of the oldest tricks in the book, and that is every major. I mean, think of every war we've gotten into, with the exception of the Revolutionary War, which is a whole other thing. When the battleship Maine blew up, and all of a sudden you got the Spanish-American War. So we blame Spain. The Gulf of Tonkin. The Alamo. That's always one of my favorites. When people say you can't put a price on human life, it's like, well, Texas wanted to be their own country. They couldn't take Mexico by themselves, so they cut a deal with the American government. The Alamo was sacrificed, and what'd you get? 200 men. You got, let's see, what was the exchange rate on that? You got Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, because there used to be an old Mexico, and that worthless piece of real estate called California. Huge trillions of dollars in real estate for 200 guys. And so I was like, I know it's decisions there. It's kind of dark and not so nice, but look, it happens in military all the time. There are men that are used as bait.
Yeah.
And you just don't know who it's going to be. And they can't tell them who it's going to be, otherwise you're not going to go out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be bait.
No, I don't want to be bait either.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing about flat Earth.
Yeah.
Falling stars. What's that crap?
Yeah, like meteorites or meteors or...
one of my co-hosts actually said it best. He goes, that's just like throwing rocks into an aquarium. That's all it is. I mean, it's part of the system, meaning you use, high-speed railgun technology, piece of metal ore, fire in a shallow angle, and make sure you don't go next to any major cities ever, which is why that Russian thing, like 4 years ago, got really dicey.
Yeah.
That was somebody
all the
fell asleep with a switch on that one.
All the Russian dash cams now are helping out with all of those different things. Seeing that across different ones, you're like, oh,
Okay, so that's just programming.
Yeah. And remember, you're not aiming. That's the one thing I always love about like shooting stars and meteors. It's like nobody has any footage of anything landing. It's always just something streaking across the sky.
It burns out.
Yeah, well, it burns out. Wouldn't you think eventually you get sort of a side of an Armageddon type thing? Where, it's the size of a school bus or whatever it is going to come down. Remember, we can only track supposedly so much of the sky.
Yeah.
But it's part of the system, and it works pretty well.
We had that lady on from Los Alamos that her job is tracking things out in space with a radio. Oh, God, I forgot about her. She was great.
Is that one of those old bonus ones?
That was the first NorwestCon.
NorwestCon one,
Nice.
yeah. She 3D models like asteroid impacting with each other. She said that
Nice.
because they're so big and such high velocities, they act like water.
Oh.
Yeah, they have fluid momentum when they hit. So it's fucking crazy. Right?
All right, so
let's.
I like that conspiracy that we knew that we were going to lose people. That's pretty good.
I mean, it's pretty solid. I mean, it's really based
Makes
on.
sense.
Yeah.
It's sad that we can all just be like, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so break down Sandy Hook.
Okay,
for us.
Sandy Hook, real quick.
This is going to get us thrown off
no,
and
it's
demonetized off everything.
Not
ever.
necessarily, because
Do you
it's
care?
no,
I know
because
you don't care.
it's
We
late.
don't
It's late in the
monetize it.
broadcast. Unless you put it in the title, most people miss it, and the algorithms don't pick it up. No. Sandy Hook for me was a real strange thing because as I was watching it, I initially, like everybody, it's like, oh, okay, that seems plausible, and then you start figuring out the details. But there were three things that absolutely threw it off the rails. What I tried to do is I put myself into other people's shoes. So I put myself in the government's shoes or whatever organization. I treat it like an op.
Yeah.
I say this op was blown in 20 minutes, and here's how I got blown. They forgot about one thing, and that was the traffic copters. Everything else actually worked pretty well. They got everybody there and everything was organized and there was nothing on camera. But the traffic copters, remember, they don't have to go through traffic. And they had a full tank of gas. It was first thing in the morning. So they were there hovering. You've seen the footage from different things. They're there hovering. It's like, we're not going anywhere. They're filming. And nobody came out of the freaking building. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a problem because if you want to try to evacuate 600 grade school kids out of a building, with 1,000 parents at the gates. By the way, where were the 1,000 cars? You remember you double it. You know, there should have been a traffic jam of biblical proportions up there, and it didn't happen. But in fact, the challenge I put out to anyone, I say, okay, I will PayPal you $1,000 right now if you can show me 10 seconds of video of any video of a child being carried out of that school. You won't find any. In fact, there's only like 3 still shots of the entire thing, and we all see it. Like some kids touching their backs, walking around where there's agents with like no guns. You know, it's kind of walking them through them and going, okay, so somebody took 3 pictures of a drill, and those were the only 3 shots they used. There was no video.
But to what end on something along those lines?
And why would you do it?
Yeah. Because I mean,
take your pick. I mean, it could have been just. I mean, there's a couple ways you could go. I mean, a standard fear beat, which is something scary's happening, you need us. Yeah. So, or it could be a gun control thing, I suppose. But it was a regional op. Whatever it was absolutely. It was not supposed to be affecting everybody nationally. It was supposed to start as regional, and it was not getting much traction because, again, you didn't have any kids. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the other things was it was the perfect kill ratio. And a lot of people don't know this. In any sort of war or conflict, there's always dead and there's wounded, right? 20 dead, 60 wounded, 1,000 dead, 4,000 wounded, casualties. This was the only shooting in the history of shootings, mass shootings, and you can look it up. It's on the chart with a perfect kill ratio. Everybody that got touched by a bullet died. Everyone. So did you get hit in the shoulder? Die. Hit in the toe? Die. Ricochet off 2 walls and grazed your hand? Dead. And that never ever happens. And the reason why is because kids make terrible witnesses. You can't have kids. They learn that from other things. Yeah. You can't have kids in a hospital bed, saying, they're terrible. I mean, unless you have professional child actors, and you're not going to grab them out of the Disney machine for that. So and I put that challenge out to anyone. I said, seriously, $1,000, and that usually shuts them up. Because you should have seen something. It takes. I'm sorry. Let me end on this. To get 600 grade schoolers out of a school first thing in the morning, you would have to clear rooms, and you're going room by room. And yeah, the adrenaline of these cops, they would have had one under each arm. They would have been carrying them out. No one would have been walking out of there. They would have carried
not calmly.
No, not calmly. Yeah. And you never saw. It would have taken hours to take 600 kids out, and by the time they got them up to their families up at the top of the hill, you got to search all the surrounding areas. They would have cordoned that place would have been locked down for at least half a day. Those kids weren't going anywhere. They would have kept them in that room until they figured out if there was multiple shooters, it would never happen. Yeah. And that by the time, when the traffic copters showed up, 10 minutes. I mean, they were there. It was like as the crow flies. It was gone. It was over. It was completely over. It was like people were just walking around having smokes. None of the emergency vehicles had their lights on. It was a nightmare. I mean, logistically, you're looking at this thing going, yeah, they missed the whole freaking thing. And then, of course, there's some of the CGI footage from. Oh, sorry, one more thing, real quick, and I don't want to be the dead horse here. But the other thing, if you have any other doubt, this usually shuts the women up. No offense. Which to the women. Well, no, because women do.
I thought you were gonna make a slapping sound. I was gonna be like, dude, you cannot do that. That's fucked up.
No, which was no. But here's why: women kind of they can sense the BS thing, which is look up a quick little video. You can do it on Google anytime you want. Called Robbie Parker smiling. Or Robbie Parker laughing. He was one of the parents of one of the 6-year-old girls. Mm-hmm. And CNN completely screwed this up. And again, it was blown from second one, which was he was going to come on CNN 24 hours later and do a little press speech. What he's talking about, right? Well, the problem is that Robbie was either misinformed or he was just a terrible D-list actor, and he didn't know that the cameras were already live. So he was joking around with his buddies, smiling, didn't lose a wink of sleep. This guy should have been a train wreck.
Yeah.
And he's just laughing, and then finally gets him to the podium. He's going, "Oh, okay, we're ready." And then you could see him getting in camera. He goes, "Okay, all right. My name's Robbie Parker." He gets all sad. He's like going into the whole method acting thing. Oh. And the problem is that he CNN didn't know what to do. They were like, he's live.
That just went out.
Yeah, that just went out. And so in every other version after that, they cut out that entire thing. They just made sure they only started running it from the podium. And it's out there on the internet. It's not hard to find. And that usually
that's savage.
Yeah, when people
I want to watch that stuff. Seriously, now. I don't know that much about it.
I've shown that to women, and they all do the same thing. As soon as they see him smiling, they start squinting, squinting at the monitor, going, "Okay, this guy's a lying asshole." And it's like, and then it starts, and then of course they get really, really mad. So.
What you got, Jeff?
Well, I just wanted to show my appreciation to Mark, because people like you take all the arrows and the slings, and that's my problem. I'm pretty wishy-washy. As soon as I have an idea and somebody says no, I say, oh, okay, I'm fine. Because, I can't take the sling. So we do appreciate people like you who do have an idea
I mean, people
and
are
go
coming,
with it.
People are coming at you a lot of the times. I assume that you try not to read the YouTube comments on your channel.
I want to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So no, I do not.
How long have you been doing your YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel, well, I didn't really, like a lot of people, you just sign up for a YouTube channel
Yeah,
when
you
you're
just start
viewing
making
videos.
it.
So the first video I ever made was in 2015. The channel had been around there since YouTube was created, but that was only because I wanted to give thumbs up and thumbs down because that's what people do.
Yep.
And so when I made my started making my videos in 2015, now I have, what is it, 1,500 and change videos.
Do you do them weekly, daily? Does it on a
It
schedule?
really
or?
varies.
Okay.
So like I'll do a show with Patricia on Wednesdays. I'll do a Strange World thing on Tuesdays. If I do interviews, I'll usually post them if they let me. Wait, can I post this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, please do.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and then I'll do promos for meetups. People will send me promos,
Nice.
saying, and so they add up pretty quickly.
Okay.
But yeah, 1,500 I think at this point.
And where can people find the YouTube? Just search for Mark Sargent.
Oh yeah. You,
I mean, we'll have a link on all of our podcast stuff as well. But if people are just casually listening to this,
it's just called Mark Sargent.
Perfect.
Sargent. You can also type in flat Earth and then just put the name Mark, and eventually I'll show up. So it's easy to find. Or you can just type in flat Earth clues.
okay,
And
yeah.
that will take you because again, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care if you go to my channel. In fact, most of the reason why I got as much traction as I did is because I was a dork and I made my videos Creative Commons license. And I just said, I don't. Well, because remember, I was fishing. I was fishing for academics to come at me. So I said, so I made a Creative Commons license. There are people out there. Of course, they've changed the rules recently. That all they did is go after videos that are Creative Commons, which means you can put them on your channel, you can monetize them, do the whole 9 yards. And so there were 3 big videos. People that took the flat Earth clues, they lumped them up and they put them on their channel and they name them something completely different. Like they are hiding God with the greatest lie ever. They are hiding God with the biggest lie ever. Under the Dome, full documentary. And I wasn't even mentioned. And,
wow.
and so people were writing me and saying, "Oh, I loved your movie," and I said, "What movie? What
are you talking about?
Yeah, what movie do you speak of?" And eventually I got tired of it. And I said, "Look, send me a link to whatever you just watched." And then I started noticing these channels, and they had way more hits than my stuff, and they weren't even big channels. But the video got a lot of hits. So as many hits as I have on my channel, there's way more of them in mirrors.
So you're like, you just at this point really want to kind of get the word out on that sort of end. With the YouTube channel. And
Yeah. I wasn't. I got into flat Earth to make money. No.
But you are doing a book, and have you done a book previously?
I did. I'm one of the few people. Again, people have heard me joke about this. If I ever live long enough to write an autobiography, it's going to be called Unsolicited, because I've never had to reach out to anybody. They've all the first book I wrote, I didn't even write. It was just
congratulations.
Thank you for that. It was a company, a publisher out of London that said, "Oh, really liked your clues. Would you mind if we turned it into a book?" And you hear from producers, and you're like,
Sure,
it's
whatever.
never going to happen. I go, "Do I have to do anything?" And they go, "No, just here, answer some quick Q&As and send us the transcripts of the clues, and we'll turn it into a book." And I honestly didn't think anything was going to happen. And then 2 months later, I got a big box, and it was on Amazon, and they were selling it.
Yeah. I noticed that on the Amazon links. I was like, oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. So eventually, because Flat Earth wouldn't die, and it just kept getting bigger and weirder, I got pressured to write another one. And because people were saying, well, you've collected enough stories over the last 4 years that maybe you should. And honestly, it does write itself.
Yeah.
Because there's so many cool things about Flat Earth. And I said, all right. So I just been sitting down, and I have to have it done pretty soon because the conferences are going to start to rolling up, and the main conference in Dallas, they want it available. They want to actually have it for Dallas. So
don't George R.R. Martin that shit.
No. So the first one was called Flat Earth Clues, The Sky's the Limit, and this one's called Flat Earth Clues, End of the World.
Oh.
I know.
Oh,
A
very
little play on
ominous.
words there. So instead of Edge of the World, the End of the World, because lots of people say, if the Earth's flat, why don't you just take a picture of the end of the world? The edge is like
Because you can't.
because you can't get out there.
I
But
heard a rumor.
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Something about a cruise ship to the end of the world.
Oh,
Is that a thing?
No, it's good. I'm glad you asked that question. So the cruise ships started. No, seriously, it's a good question. The cruise ships thing started because Robbie Davidson wanted to do a cruise. He wanted to do the conference. I know why he did it. I mean, you can only when you book hotel when you do conferences, they give you all sorts of free hotel rooms and hotel packages. But what does that do? How many hotels can you possibly? But if you do it like a cruise, oh, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother set of perks. So he wanted to do a cruise out of Miami. Just a little Caribbean cruise. And it was supposed to be in 2019, and he pushed it off to 2020. But before he did, a UK journalist got a hold of it, and of course had to make the joke, which was, he's going to take the cruise to the edge of the world. It's going to see the edge. They're going to go to the ice wall, right? Kind of a jest. Well, journalists nowadays do not reference. They do not do due diligence on anything.
So it just takes.
So it just took. It's like all of a sudden, next thing you know, I've got 10, 12 different interviewers saying, it's like, tell us about, even TV people going, tell us about this cruise to the edge of the world.
You basically want to do the equivalent of a Kiss cruise just to go and have fun, and now it's turned into and blown up because one person made a joke.
I just got a quote for the Star Trek cruise out of Miami.
Oh, shit.
That's $6,000 for 2 people to go do that.
Really?
There's some money in these cruises.
So you doing it?
I would love to.
Wait, whoa. That seems a little steep for even you got to... 6,000 for a cruise?
Is it like
for 2 people?
Oh, for 2 people, that's not terrible.
Yeah, but you get to hang out with William Shatner. He's going to go on the cruise.
I would do that to hang
And
out.
oh,
Uhura.
sweet. So you're
still alive?
going to get norovirus with William Shatner. Congratulations.
Uhura, Takai. I'm sorry.
Takai won't do it.
Well,
he's not on
Well,
the
no,
list.
but he's still alive.
Yeah. Nichelle Nichols is still alive.
Yeah.
And Shatner is, and I think that's the last one.
Some of the Deep Space Odo from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, they're still around.
Oh, yeah, those guys are around.
And the weird furry dude from Deep Space Nine. He's
The
gonna be
weird
on there.
furry dude,
never watched
Chewbacca?
No.
Yeah, you don't. Most of the time, you don't recognize him though in real life.
Give us another conspiracy. What's your other favorite one?
You
I'm
wanna-
so into this.
Okay, are there conspiracies that intersect with the Flat Earth Society that you see come up that either you are akin to or you're just knowledgeable of?
Well, the big conspiracy that always comes up with flat Earth, and honestly, it's part of the litmus test, which is Apollo. Remember the American moon program, which has been hacked up forever, ever since they stopped in 1972. So what I'm saying is, whenever you talk to anybody that may or you're wondering if you're feeling about flat Earth, one of the first questions you always ask them is, okay, do you believe the Americans went to the moon, or we went to the moon? And
I'm
if they
prime bait to be a flat earther because I don't think we went to the moon.
well, and that's good. And a lot of people didn't, including me. I mean, it's seriously the footage has aged so terribly, and the still images are ridiculously
the sheer amount of them. is
out of place. And I mean, remember when it comes to nerds and even movies, all it takes is one guy in his underwear at 3 a.m. in Nebraska.
Nitpicking asshole.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, and then he posts it, and that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be that way with moon landing. So if somebody waves the flag, it's usually Americans, and they go, oh yeah, red, white, and blue, Americans went to the moon. And military guys love wearing, in fact, that's one of the new shirts, which is country, went to the moon. That's like a meme where you have the world map and it's all empty except for stars and stripes, and it's like, oh yeah, I see what you did there. But outside of the United States, it always surprised me how many people believe the Americans. That's the part that blew me away. Which was like, when I went to other countries, it's like, why did you believe the Americans? It's like, well, because it was on television. It's like, that's that. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so people used to tear it apart for a long time, but remember the venue was much, much more narrow. So yeah, you go to like a UFO convention, and there would be a booth. It'd be like somebody would be saying, "Oh yeah, we didn't go to the moon, and here's why." But there was no internet and stuff like that. So until social media came out, that's when it didn't get much play. And then when Flat Earth came out, it really changed it. Because for me, no, I didn't believe in the moon mission, but I couldn't figure out for the life of me. It's like the reasons wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Meaning, why would you fake it? Why would you fake the moon mission? It's like, yeah, I get it. Wave the flag, go team, rah, rah, we're the best. I got that. It's a good reason, but it's not great. Then when I got into Flat Earth, I understood it. It's like, okay, now I get it.
Distraction to prove.
Well, it's not. No.
Disprove.
It's easier than that, which is, well, one is a space reinforcement, but it's not that you wanted to fake the moon missions. You had to. If you don't fake the moon missions, you run into the potential of one of the major contractors and subcontractors getting into a space agency. Meaning, but people don't know that NASA doesn't make their own parts. There's a collection of parts from, General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Boeing, yeah, huge. Yeah, Boeing's big into that. And the last thing you want is like Boeing and Frito-Lay to team up down the road and say, we want to put a Doritos flag on the moon. Let's make that happen. And then you run into real problems. So you militarize space and you go rapid fire each time. In fact, it's one of my science questions, which I throw at people, which I say is, because I'm sorry, let me rattle off real fast for you, because I know you're into questions. This might help you a little bit. These guys are totally over. Which is, no, there was a German television team got a hold of me and they said, okay, we found a physicist to debate you down in Georgetown. It's like, right on, good. But we're not going to have you talk to him directly so you don't talk over each other. We're going to have you record some questions on video. We will send him the video. We will play it for him. He will record, and we'll just go back and forth. Like, you guys are never going to talk. It's like, all right, fine, that works for me. And they go, okay, come up with 5 science questions. I go, fine, great. So real fast, long distance photography, which we won't get into right now, which, way beyond what the curvature of the Earth would be. Gravity versus the vacuum of space, which of course, where's the bleeding edge of space? Nobody in science can tell you. The eclipse shadow is too small. 2,000 mile wide object, 70 mile wide blackout zone, absolutely impossible. The eclipse or the moon is generating a cold light, which is, but I'm getting to the fifth one that's most important. The moon's generating a cold light, which means it's actually warmer in the moon shade than it is in the moonlight, up to like 13 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just freaks people out. Doesn't prove a flat Earth, but it blows away the relationship between the sun and the moon. But the big one is the Apollo program, which is, okay, are the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? Yes or no? And it's a trap question. They can't win it. Which is, okay, if you say they are deadly, then how did the Americans make round trips through it without any protection whatsoever? Remember, the capsules was all made out of aluminum and plastic. The only things that stop radiation are gold, lead, and a whole bunch of water, reference Chernobyl. And then and they didn't use any of these things. So how did they make it through those radiation belts? And nobody died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. Nobody got cancer. It's still like 5 of them walking around today.
Yeah.
And if you say, okay, they aren't deadly, then I point to the NASA.gov website where they made a video at the end of 2014 for television where they talk about the Orion project. It's called Orion Trial by Fire, where they say, oh yeah, the belts are so freaking deadly that we're not even going to test capsules with people in them until we can solve the radiation problem. And it's like, wait, you solved those already, though, in the 1960s. In fact, you solved them perfectly. So how are you having a radiation problem now? Did you uninvent the technology? Have you moved to a technology that's obsolete? How are you doing this?
I had thought the Van Allen radiation belt was on the other side of the moon. I thought that the moon was inside that.
No. Well, they're supposed
not knowing stuff.
Well, again, unfortunately, because I've been doing this for so long, I have absorbed so many little scientific factoids and religious factoids, for that matter. But no, the Van Allen belts are supposedly go from about 400 miles up to about 60,000 miles up, if you believe it, and they're really, really thick. Well, the best speed we've got on anything is, if you believe it, is something like 19,000 miles an hour, which means you're pushing about 3 hours in those belts each way. And remember, when you're coming back from the moon, if you believe the story, you're slowing down.
Yeah.
You're hitting the brakes going into that, so you're even spending more time. And it never, ever happens. Those capsules should have been irradiated so much. Should have never been in the Smithsonian. I mean, you should be able to take a Geiger counter right now and be like...
Yeah, just get lit up. Yeah.
So
Ooh, I like that a lot.
I love it
that's
when
a great
Brogan's
point.
face changes. He's like,
What?
oh.
Oh, snap.
So anyway, so yeah, the big conspiracy that dovetails in for every flat earther is Apollo and NASA. In fact, and the denial out there in the general public is amazing. I've had people literally come to me and say, "Okay, fine, the moon missions are trash, but you can't tell me that the ISS is fake." And I mean, seriously,
Is
that's
the ISS fake?
Well, it'd have to be.
look. It's seriously. I mean, this is
That
yeah,
dude playing the guitar on the space station isn't real?
or,
Shit.
He's a real person.
because that's what you would send up as a guitar. The, and every NFL jersey and gorilla suits for pranks and all this other and fresh fruit and all this other stuff. I mean, sorry, no. The point is like if you're faking one thing, you have to fake everything because the punishment's going to be the same. If you, it's the line from Heat. Remember the movie Heat, which is well, if you
Al
shoot
Pacino?
one, if you shoot one guy, you might as well shoot them all
Yeah.
because you're already in trouble for the one guy. Which is if you faked Apollo, you might as well fake the ISS. The ISS is absolutely ridiculous. Look up things like forget like ISS green screen, which will come up right away. Things like ISS hairspray, which is why all the women have their hair completely permed straight up like the Bride of Frankenstein.
So how is it that people can see it? Is that just part of the?
Oh no! I mean, they can see it. There's something up there, no question. I mean, it's military and it's up there, but are people living on it? No, not a chance.
Oh, okay. I can get behind that.
Well, and also look up things like there was a guy debated on air. He was down in the Australian television station. He was an American. He worked for us. And he was asking about satellites. He goes, how are we talking right now? And it got really weird. And I go, I don't know, look up something called the NASA High Altitude Balloon Program. It's been happening since the 50s. You can launch payloads up to 4 tons. He goes, yeah, I know, I work on it. And I go, and I'm like, I almost developed a facial tick. I was going, you're helping me by saying this. And everybody knows this. I mean, the point is, if you can lift 4-ton payloads and keep them up there with hydrogen balloons, because it has way more lift than helium, then why in the world? And that's pennies on that's fractions of pennies on the dollar compared to a rocket. Why would you ever use anything on a rocket? With the exception of, like some geostationary thing that's halfway between, here and the moon. But
Love it. All right, we are running out of time because we got our next interviews coming up. But Mark, seriously, thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
Yeah,
man, this was awesome.
Yeah, this is insane. We might actually pump this into 2 episodes. I don't know. Or just keep it. We're keeping it.
This is staying as 1 episode, and it's going to be our go-to best of for a while. I can smell it.
Yeah. I love this. Seriously,
Right,
Mark.
thanks a lot, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
thanks, guys. Cool.
Cool. Seriously.
That was fun.
Awesome.